Hello and welcome to How I Got into 5th Edition. Now, be forewarned, this is not a story with a happy beginning, and it's gonna feature a pretty personal topic to me, and a very touching one to other people. Some people. Some people are more open to talk about it, others are not. I probably fall in between those two. Well, let's get started. I started playing Dungeons and Dragons when I was 6 for 2nd and 3rd edition. And I played off and on. Did not play 4th edition. There were a lot of reasons people told me to get out of Dungeons and Dragons. A lot of reasons people told me to get into Dungeons and Dragons. But I really never had an important reason to play Dungeons and Dragons until 5th edition. So what was that reason? Well, you're about to find out. Through series of circumstances, and I apologize for the pauses. It's a touchy subject to talk about for me. Is for a series of circumstances, I landed inside a mental hospital. And I was hospitalized for a couple months. I don't remember how long it was. It was quite a while. Maybe about 2 or 3 months. So yeah, and you're probably wondering. Well, yeah, you're probably wondering a lot of things right now because me being in a mental hospital is going to raise some questions like, what are you in a mental hospital for? And to be honest, I'm not going to get into that because this is not about. It's partly. It's not about what landed me in the hospital. It's about what I did near the end of the hospital and at the beginning of outpatient and there on 4th. So when they diagnosed me, hospital diagnosed me with bipolar type 1. Well, it's part of my diagnosis. You'll probably never hear the full diagnosis, but who knows. But bipolar type 1. And for those of you who don't know what that is, it's a lot more complicated than this, but it's basically at its core is it's like a roller coaster that just goes up and down between depression and mania. Now, I know a lot of you probably know what depression is. It's the mental illness where you feel down, you don't feel like doing anything, and so forth, and you just really don't feel like anything. Like, you don't feel like doing anything. You're lucky if you get out of bed. Mania, on the other hand, is on the opposite side of that spectrum. Mania is where you feel good, you feel energized, you feel like you can take on and do anything. Except it's higher than it should be, and it's not really healthy to have mania. It may sound like it, but it's really not. So you're going back and forth between mania and depression. That's how the hospital described it to me. You're just going back and forth on a slope that goes up and down at the bottom being depression, on the top being mania. There are a few other things that come with it. Anxiety, for one. So that's what my therapist has taught me. It's, but at its core, it's just you're just going up and down a slope that goes up and down between mania and depression. Uh, but there's more to it than that. But that's the basic description of it. The way that was given to me in the hospital, the way I'm going to give it to you. Let's see. Yeah, so I was diagnosed with bipolar type 1. Now, before then, all I ever do was stay at home with my depression, sometimes my mania, and just go through that. And that's not healthy for anyone. You need to get out more and so forth. They required me to, for one, they needed medication. And there are a few other things like eating right, exercise, but they also required a social activity. Now, for some odd reason, for my social activity, they needed me to do something that reflect my interests. So they recommended as a social activity to play Dungeons and Dragons. Mainly because, so it's not, now a lot of people when I tell this to, think, oh, it's about escapism. No. It's about, because it's a cooperative game. A very social game. It requires you to be around other people. Now, when I first heard this, my first reaction was, what? Yeah, and I imagine you guys are as well. I mean, this sounds a little unorthodox, a little strange to recommend Dungeons and Dragons to a person who's going for a mental illness. But they were serious. They're serious, and I asked them several times, like, "Are you sure? Can you repeat that again?" Eventually, they just wrote it down and gave it to me, and it said, "Go play Dungeons and Dragons." So when I got into outpatient from inpatient, they recommended that I go play at a store for organized play or something. So I went to several different stores, mostly dragged by a friend to do it. Found out one that worked for me, and I found out something called Adventures League. Eventually, I was sat at a table with complete strangers. We played Lost Mines and Feldover. And over the past few years, I slowly got better. Now, I'm not saying Dungeons and Dragons is a all cure-all or something like that for mental illness. No. It's just, like I said, it's just me being prescribed a social activity as a part of my plan to recovery. So to keep me doing something, keeping me be social, getting out there in the world, instead of being isolated. Um, so they, and for some odd reason, and I still don't fully understand this, they're using Dungeons and Dragons as a therapeutic method worked. I don't know why it worked. I don't fully understand, but it helped. I'm not saying, like I said, I'm not saying it's a cure all. I'm just saying it worked for me. Just because it worked for me doesn't mean it's going to work for you, but uh, I'm not going to lie either and say it didn't help me. But I'm not going to lie either and say it's going to work for everybody. But I'm not here to tell you if this would work for someone. I'm just here telling you what worked for me and helped me through a trying time. I found that the staff at the store and the community of the Ventures League were very supportive. Eventually, they did find out why I was there to treat my to help. Well, not treat, but aid. It's probably a better word with my bipolar. Eventually, I did tell them the full diagnosis, and surprisingly enough, they did not shy away. They did not shy away. They were still supportive, very, very warm towards me, very accepting. Which, like, there's only two communities I've ever seen that friendly, and one's the Dungeons and Dragons community, and the other's the mental health community. So, so it was. So basically, I got into 5th edition through a trying time as a help to help me through a very rough moment in my life when I was dealing with. Well, I still do deal with it. No, this isn't something that goes away. This is something you have to deal with day by day. But strangely enough, when I play Dungeons and Dragons, I feel a lot better about myself. I feel a lot of things happen that don't normally happen. Like I can get sleep. I can I'm more relaxed. More. It means a lot to me now, more than it did before. So, but I did play Ventures League for about 3 years. When I had to move, I left to I left at Tales of the Young Portal was being released, and we were playing a sample adventure, the first chapter, Son of the Citadel, which will probably be forever one of my most favorite dungeons. Not because it's exciting or brilliant or so forth, though I love Meepos. Those who know who Meepos is. It's because the community itself did something surprising to me. When I was leaving, they gave me a sort of a farewell celebration. where they had cake and cupcakes with D20s on them. This was arranged by the staff, and one of the guys who was in charge of organizing the Adventure League, when he brought cake, the staff brought cupcakes, and one of the DMs, when I played and finished Sonala Citadel, he made me a miniature of a Gathais tree, which was pretty cool. I still have that this day. So it really does speak as a whole to the community of Dungeons and Dragons and what Dungeons and Dragons has helped me through. And I would just like to take a moment to say to the community of Adventures League, the community of Dungeons and Dragons, the staff at the store, you guys know who you are, and the makers of Dungeons and Dragons, and say thank you. And yeah, that's how I got into 5th edition. It was a part of my structured schedule as a therapeutic method to help with my mental illness, to play. So here's your answer. And I told this for 2 reasons. One, to share with the community why I'm so appreciative of it, and 2, to raise awareness of mental illness, because it's not talked about. It is talked about by some people, but it isn't talked about enough, I don't think. So, and I'll probably, if you ask me to, I will probably do a video on answering your questions about mental illness that I can answer, or what it's like to be hospitalized, or things like that. But there is a reason I love Dungeons and Dragons, and words can't express enough how much I care for it. So again, to the community and everyone who worked on it, and staff of the store, thank you. So this is Seraph signing off.